All right, thank you for tuning in. 25 minutes before 10 o'clock, we were just learning some fascinating things about technology in the tech world. And, you know, technology is playing a role in our world in medicine and in so many other ways. Diane Roberts-Stoller is on the phone. She's a licensed psychologist, a neuropsychologist, a practicing board-certified health and sports psychologist, a forensic expert, a brain injury consultant, and an author. Her book is called Coping with Concussion and Mild Traumatic Brain Injury, a guide to living with the challenges associated with post-concussion syndrome and brain trauma. And coincidentally, this morning, for some reason I found online, I've just gravitated toward it. Maybe it was God helping me prepare for this interview, but it was this video on, you know, what that thing called TED Talks, whatever the thing is, TED, you know, Are you familiar with that? Well, it was a doctor talking about how brain scans can actually give the psychiatric profession tips instead of throwing darts in the dark to help a patient. It actually can help you as a doctor, a psychiatric doctor. Diane Roberts-Stoller. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. And I'm going to add one more thing to the list you just read.
What is it?
I'm also a brain injury survivor.
A survivor?
A stroke and 4 traumatic brain injuries, yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. And how long ago were you injured?
So, you know, I joke with my patients. I said, I'm not only the club president, I'm a client.
Where are you, Diane? Where are you calling from?
I'm north of Boston.
North of Boston, okay.
Yes, and have a lot of colleagues down in the Florida area, so I'm going to be letting people know they can get really some wonderful services down in that area.
Do brain injuries, I mean, you just hinted at stroke, and obviously if you're working with sports, I'm guessing sports creates brain injuries. It only makes sense, or car accidents or anything. But does it sometimes happen chemically? Do we maybe eat the wrong things, or maybe take a chemical, maybe legal or illegal, either way, that could hurt our brains?
Well, the answer is yes. And we all know if you take Molly or if you take ecstasy or if you've been drunk. And I'm going to ask about the feedback.
Oh, you have feedback? I apologize for that. It sounds fine on our end. Are you getting an echo type of feedback?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize.
Sorry.
There's nothing I can really do about it, but I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the first thing you asked about was technology. One of the things that's in this book that I want to focus on is that I'm sorry.
It's okay. Is the feedback just too distracting?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I don't know
Okay. Is that it in each chapter it allows you how to diagnose the symptoms of post-concussion syndrome, and a vignette, and it has specific methods that are conventional, complementary, and some of the cutting-edge technologies. Before, if you had a concussion, you would just go have a CAT scan. And that CAT scan would only tell visually if it was like if there was an elephant in the room. You could see if there was a bleed or a tear, but you cannot see a concussion.
Okay.
Now, the new technology today, such as an SWI, that will allow you to see the mouse in the house. You can see the micro shears. You can see how the connections are no longer working.
Oh, wow. And
so that's some of the things they were talking about. And that the EMFs that can actually hurt the brain from your cell phone can actually be helped to heal you, too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So there's truth that your cell phone can cause you problems?
Absolutely, because you're causing dysregulation of your frequencies of your brain. The brain is running on 3 things. It's working on vascular, it's working on oxygen, but also it's the electrical system. And you have a neuroconnectivity, and that electric goes from 0.5 to 64 hertz. And that if it's if the amplitude is dysregulated, it's causing this brain injury.
So is this same thing happening with all the Wi-Fi that's going on all around us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so, you before people say, why is there more concussions? Why is there more, confusion? Is that our nutrition is off? Think about it. The HMOs and the artificial flavors.
Right.
So we've got to get back to the basics. And everything that I'm talking about is in this book. I'm talking about nutrition's in the book. It's telling about the cutting-edge technologies in the book, because what the biggest thing is, most people don't realize there's a way to get better.
Is a person able to get normal? One of my daughter's coworkers, she was texting. She ran off the road, hit a pole. She has she has this brain injury. She can't remember anybody that comes to see her. She had a punctured lung and a few other things that were wrong with her. Do you think she'll be able to get back to normal and resume her regular job, or will she be not able to do that?
Okay, you asked me about my story.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you the story so you can tell it to her, okay?
Okay.
And she can always call me. I had a cerebral bleed from a growth in my brain. It was bleeding while I was driving. I had a 60-mile-an-hour head-on auto accident. 5 months later, I had brain surgery. I had a portion of my brain removed. I was told by every doctor I was permanently brain damaged and never, ever going to get better. The program I put together that's in this book, and through personal consultations, I've been able to help people regain their life again.
Oh, wow. And
that's the answer to your question.
And
thank you.
Will the doctors,
You're welcome.
In your case, and was it something you did, something the doctors did?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay, so what did you do?
Well, at the time of my accident, I had an integrative team, and I knew about biofeedback, and neurofeedback was just coming in the 1990s. Now it is well established. There's enough research on it, and and I assume that your friends in Florida?
Tampa. Yes, yeah. Tampa.
Yeah. In the Tampa area, there is a wonderful center down there. I can give you the phone number. And this is what I do. This is what I do as a consult. I work with people worldwide. They call me. I find the clinicians for them in the local area. And so they can recover. Absolutely. This is what I do. So the book is more generic, not genetic.
Right.
Generic. The feedback is really getting me, but
I can tell.
So you now know one of the areas I still have a little problem still with.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, is that the echo is throwing my thought process off a little bit.
Right.
So is that the answer is that through neurofeedback, and there's a wonderful one down in Tampa, and changing her diet, and so the specific symptoms she's having is in the book. So you should have a copy of the book.
We do have a copy of the book.
Good.
Yeah.
And you could look in the area. So if she's still having memory problems for that specific area, is that changing her foods, getting her a more omega diet, it's in there. Also, getting as I said, neurofeedback, water therapy. One of our team members, Igor Berdanko, has trained people down in the Tampa area. And so if you call up, we will arrange for the people who work with him. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. Are you okay with taking calls from listeners?
I can take it if we're not going to have this echo.
Oh my goodness! I can't promise that. Let's see how we can do. Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with Diane Roberts Stoller.
Well, mostly I just want to tell her, because I understand this echo thing. I get it sometimes, and I know how distracting it is, that if you just put the phone away from your ear and just turn upside down and talk to it like it's a microphone, you won't hear your echo, and you'll be able to concentrate on what you're saying. That's all. Good luck.
You.
Oh, okay.
Also,
okay.
You know what is that? Then I won't be able to hear what they're asking me. But thank you.
Yeah. Well,
you're a lot of fun.
So when we have a brain issue, a brain damage, and it affects us physically,
yes.
do we? let's say I have somebody has a stroke and his
Well,
or
I'm
her.
going to interrupt you, Larry.
Yeah.
Is that on my website of drdiane.com? That's drdiane.com. There, the cluster of symptoms is physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. It's not just physical.
Okay.
So
but
that's what's important.
I guess what I wanted to ask is, does the reverse approach work? What I mean by that is, if the brain has damaged whatever causes you to be able to control your arm, and you somehow control your arm, either by lifting it with the other arm, or maybe you can do it just a little bit. Can we actually exercise our muscles to train our brain, maybe to even use a different part of the brain in order to work the part that was...
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%, because the Tarloff method, which is that the people who have strokes, who can't move, you don't allow them to move the good arm. You only allow them to move the bad arm, the paralyzed arm. It's called restrictive therapy, and it forces the brain to make new neural connections in the area for that arm. Absolutely.
Do you know, I knew a guy who was in an accident, and he was in a coma, and when he came out of the coma, he was not able to speak, he was not able to walk, and he literally had to learn it all over again.
So did I.
Okay, so now here's the question I have about him, because I don't know if you can explain this, and there's probably an explanation. But he grew up in New York, had the rich, thick Brooklyn accent. He lived down here when he had the accident. He was in the hospital down here during his rehab. He was taught by Southern nurses how to talk again, and he still had the Brooklyn accent.
The answer to your question is you're assuming that speech is in only one area. It isn't. It is, think of the flying from Boston to Tampa. I might have to go to Chicago, Atlanta. So there's hubs, and they're all connective, but I'll get down to Florida eventually.
Oh, I got you. So
if one hub is off, but 5 of the other hubs are still working, you just you might have to detour, go to Houston to go to Atlanta, to go to Florida. See?
So the people who do the mass shootings and the information that we get sometimes through the press that these people were mentally unstable, there's a school of thought that says that we could have seen this in advance had we studied their brains. So if they showed signs when they were younger that they were heading in that direction, we could have studied their brain, seen what the problem was, and actually corrected it before they got to be 16, 17, 20, whatever, and started shooting up movie theaters and schools. What are your thoughts on that school of thought?
Okay, that on my website again of drdiane.com, I have a 5-prong approach, and it's also in my book. I look at the physical, the psychological, the emotional, spiritual, and energy. And we're talking about the chi. Okay, and when I talk about energy, if a person's schizophrenic and they think they can fly off a building, and then they have a brain injury, their schizophrenia is still there. So can you see schizophrenia? Yes. There's through quantitative EEGs, the newest research coming out, yes, you can see it.
Okay, so it's actually like you can see it in a scan, is that what you mean?
There's 2 types of scans I've been trying to explain. One, and it is in the book, one is a structural, to see if there's a break in the window and the glass. So you're looking at if there's a tear. But the other is the functioning. Are there people in the house? What are they doing? So the functional MRI, the quantitative EEG, or a paper and pencil test called neuropsych testing, these allow you to see how the brain is functioning.
Okay. And with your expert as a forensic expert, you probably physically see the areas in the brain that are being affected by different things, and that helps you in your treatment?
Absolutely. So when someone comes in, and, for example, I can see that there's too much delta wave in the frontal lobe, I know to go right there. So I tell people you could go out onto a lake and just go fishing all over, or you can go get your sonar and find out where the fish are and then go there.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I put it in those terms. I understand it. When the brain controls the hormones that are in our bloodstream, does the brain damage sometimes cause that to malfunction? And what kind of problems?
Absolutely. I keep addressing is and on our team we have an endocrinologist, we have a psychiatrist, we have a neurologist, because this is what you're talking about. It could be that the hormones are off that causes the brain injury, or the brain injury could cause the hormones.
Oh, really? So either
yes.
or.
Yes.
Huh.
So, for example, if you're having an injury to the brain, which is throwing off your testosterone, and now you're going into a rage because you have excess testosterone. See what I'm saying?
Right.
Are you also a consultant where it comes to the manufacture of football helmets, race car helmets, that type of thing, to try to protect the brain from dislodging itself if they're in a high-impact situation?
Not yet. We're working on that.
Huh. So does it drive you nuts to see football players? That must drive you nuts.
No. What it drives me nuts is when the doctors do not know. There is a woman in New York City who got injured, and she went to one of the top neurologists, and he said, your brain is like a tomato, and it's never going to get better. And that one is what upsets me the most, because that's what I want your listeners to hear. There's help and hope for every symptom that's on my website and in the book that they can recover.
Does this include neurological things external from the brain, and what I mean, like the spinal cord? And I always look at it as the brain is like the powerhouse, and everything else is wiring. So does this apply to the wiring as well?
Well, I'll give you an example. If you have spinal cord injury, that is the actual cable going up to the brain. And so that is not my expertise. However, I have a patient who has locked-in syndrome. That means there's no spinal cord injury, but his brain has forced him that he can't move any part of his body.
Oh, wow.
But he can think as clearly as you are right now. And so I worked with him when he was in a coma, and then he's been to the rehab, and for the last 3 years, using neurofeedback, changing his diet, doing exercise, doing cognitive rehab, he is now able to move his limbs free of will.
Oh, wow. And did that include just exercise and psychological
and the
approach?
Neurofeedback.
Okay, neurofeedback.
This is what I'm saying.
Maybe I don't
Yes.
understand what that is. Maybe I need some more explanation about that. Is it chemical at all?
No. Neurofeedback is taking the electrical signal from your brain, putting it into an amplifier, and giving feedback to your brain that you want it to do to correct it. So it is like the PT of brains rather than physically.
When there was an outbreak of polio, especially among children, if this realization would have been back then, do you think there would have been less cases of polio and more of the children would have been able to regain their motor skills and not have to be in those leg braces?
Oh, I think so. Is that just be seeing that my guy who's locked in can look at a screen and actually use his eyes to communicate. I mean, there's so many new things out.
Does any of this applicable to like somebody who's autistic?
Yes, I did my doctoral dissertation on autism, and yes, I work with autistic children, and this methods of neurofeedback, changing the diet, but the diets are changed specifically for the areas we're working on. It's not just a genetic, like let's gluten-free. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
not a carte blanche. Every person coming in, we make a customized program for them. Yes.
Will this help with dementia patients also?
With dementia, I'm going to qualify it. Dementia is the aging of the brain. The fact is, you can make new synaptic connections and neurons as you get older. So I did it with my mother, who had 2 strokes, 3 concussions, and she did the neurofeedback, she did the diet, and I want you to know, at 92 years old, she was reading 5 books a week.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, to qualify what I just said to you, is Alzheimer's is a subdivision, and so is Lewy bodies, and there's many subdivisions. Some of them are degenerative. Some are having bacterial infections. So dementia just means the aging, of the brain.
We were just talking about technology with the last segment, and there was a part of the discussion that I didn't get to, and it had to do with this experiment that was in the news just this morning about these monkeys that were able to move virtual arms with their thoughts. So that must all dovetail, I guess, with what your subject is about, that we have, our brains are capable of more than we probably even realize.
As a matter of fact, that particular research I have actually seen and been part of. I mean, I didn't do the research. I want to qualify that. Is that if you have a stimulation in that area, the thought can cause something else to move. And I've been working on that with the locked-in syndrome, but it's not internal into the brain, but it's external. Yes. I've been working on that headgear for the last 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Now, does a person have to really want to get better for all of these treatments to be successful? Do they have to realize that they can get better? It'll take a lot of work on their part.
Robin, one of the things you asked, and I have a whole chapter on grieving the loss of self. If you lose faith, remember I said about the 5-prong approach, the spiritual area?
Mm-hmm.
If you lose faith, if you lose hope, you can walk in, and they've done enough placebo experiments on this. If someone comes in and says, I have a pill that's going to help you, and you believe that doctor, that pill's going to work. I've seen people who go into surgery and they say, I'm going to die. And they're going to die, even if the surgery is successful.
Because they believe it. They believe either positive or negative. Yeah.
So that's why as I said in my last few minutes, is this book is to give people help and hope, to let them know they can recover.
Definitely good stuff. I do have a copy of the book. It's called Coping with Concussion and Mild Traumatic Brain Injury, A Guide to Living with the Challenges Associated with Post-Concussion Syndrome and Brain Trauma. And I would like to give away the copy I have right now. The rest of us have to go buy it, though. Diane Roberts-Stoller is the author, along with Barbara Albers-Hill, by the way. I'll mention your co-author. Diane, how do, once I give this away, we'll need to go buy one. So how do we get it? Do you have a website?
You can get it at drdiane.com. That's drdiane.com. Or you can go on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, but you won't get the autographed copy from them.
And if people have questions, can they go to drdiane.com and email you?
Absolutely. And my phone number is 800-500-9971.
All right.
Excellent.
Right.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the hopeful thoughts on the woman that Robin knows.
And absolutely. Okay.
Diane, thank you so much for being on the air with us today. Come back anytime, and I apologize so much for the feedback. I know that we've had other guests, and I wish somebody would figure out how to fix that. Thank you, Diane.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
Don't ever miss a single edition of the Mike Huckabee Show. We're going to have a whole lot of fun talking the big issues of the day. We'll talk to the newsmakers and the issues that made them a newsmaker, as well as we'll bring you some entertainment, some fun. You never know what's going to happen on the Mike Huckabee Show. Don't miss it.
Join Mike Huckabee every weekday from noon to